7, the home of untold stories.
Brewing disquiet in Odinga's ODM on the fate of the handshake is the latest entrant to the season of political uncertainty. Hardliners in the Orange Party advising the party leader Raila Odinga to forego the BBI and handshake, go slow on the cozy handshake deal and instead focus on the party for the 2022 general election. Tonight we make sense of Odinga's 3-year-old pact with President Uhuru Kenyatta. We are asking, is it shaky or stable? Talk to us. The hashtag to use is Pundits Night. Send us a message on 22047. Our guests tonight, Didmas Baraza is Kimilili Lawmaker, Tim Wanyonyi is Westland Lawmaker, and Mohammed Mahmoud is Wajir South Member of Parliament. Haman Manyora is our resident analyst and will be joining us. Gentlemen, good evening and thank you all for making time for us on Pundits Night tonight.
Good evening.
All right, Mheshimiwa Tim Wanyonyi, let me start with you. And the very preamble of this discussion is a question which begs whether the handshake is shaky or stable. What is it in your view?
In my view, the handshake is still steady. We are still on course until otherwise proven that it's shaky. But from where I sit, we are okay.
You say it is stable and not shaky, even when your party leader faults the Jubilee government, when leaders of your own party say signaling as though there is a problem that needs to be relooked at?
Remember, handshake is not about Jubilee government or ODM. Handshake is about Kenya, and it's about bringing about the welfare of Kenyans before political parties. Mm-hmm. And what happens in Jubilee, it is their own business. What happens in ODM, it is our business. And handshake did not take away that Raila Odinga's mandate as the party leader of ODM. And ODM still remains a political party and one of the largest party in the country, mm-hmm. the largest and the oldest, other than KANU. We are the oldest and we have been around. And it is time has come that now, because our party leader has been spending quite a lot of time on issues of the handshake, but time has come now that he has to balance between the PBI and the party matters. So there's nothing wrong, there's nothing sinister about that.
All right, you say he has to balance between the BBI, the handshake, and the 2022 elections. When Siaya Senator James Orengo says, and I quote, that as ODM, we made a choice to support and work with the government, but we will only do so when they are on the right track. If they keep on provoking us, that we are ready to go to the trenches for the sake of Kenyans who are looking for us.
Because we are the official opposition party. We must make the government work, and we must keep the government on toes. Mm-hmm. So by us actually, the time we have been in the handshake, it looked like we were part of the government, but we are not part of the government. We are still in the opposition. And somebody was mentioning that now ODM is in the government because we are in the committees. We are heading committees in Parliament. Being in committees is a parliamentary affair, and any member of Parliament is eligible to head any committee in Parliament. Depending with the membership, when the membership agree that so and so can be the chair of the committee, so mm-hmm. then so be it. It's not about the executive, it's about parliament affairs.
All right.
So as far as we are concerned, we are still in the opposition and will remain official opposition party in the parliament.
Mheshimiwa Mohammed Mahmoud of Wajir South, Tim Wanyonyi says the handshake to him and his party is stable. What in your view is the handshake between stability and shakiness?
Well, I mean, the definition of shakiness, the definition of the handshake shakiness is one of the most important things that we really need to outline. And that seems to be, a question that remains, that's not yet to be answered, what the meaning of that shakiness means. But what I try to think is that the two principles of the two major parties, that is President Uhuru Kenyatta and the Right Honorable Odinga, have actually come together to ensure that the relationship between the parties, between Kenyans and not necessarily parties, I want to take that back, but between Kenyans is what they were looking at in the beginning. And whether that has taken off the course or not is a question that really needs to be understood clearly when the time comes. And when is the time to come? The time to come is about when the political season really gets into its peak. And that is when we can be able to truthfully say it out. But I want to say that there are challenges, there are issues, there are challenges that really needs to be addressed. And those challenges must be taken head on. And ideally, we need not to bury our heads in the sand. Obviously, in coalitions, in many coalitions that do occur, look at Germany, look at Japan of the previous Shinzo Abe. I mean, they had coalitions, they had a relationship that they developed so that they can start up a government. And when the reality dawned on, the situation has been quite serious. But I want to come back home here straight away to your question. Whether the handshake is shaky or not, we want to see one Kenya, and we want to see the political climate cooled down. It has already begun.
You talk of the unity of the country as one. This handshake, as per President Uhuru Kenyatta and the lead proponents, Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta, is a unity pact to unify the country. The lack of stability, as some allude to, will mean as though it will go contrary to what they said and what they still hold.
You see, we need to differentiate two things. We need to differentiate about governance. We need to differentiate about political, temperatures. These are two different things, in my view. And one of the things that we really need to look at, is there a political noise? Is there a political fever? I would say, yes, there is. That is even within the ODM party itself, or within the Jubilee itself. So if I can stand in the middle on that and say, look here, there are challenges that are happening within the NASA party even itself, and not the party, but NASA coalition for that matter, and the Jubilee party itself. There are challenges within those parties. But do I take that to a level to say it is shaky? I think that is a question that I can always answer when the time comes. And that time will be when really the political temperature has really can be felt and looked at, and the political season has begun, in other words.
Fair enough. Didmas Barasa is Kimilili lawmaker. Didmas, the very preamble is the discussion on shakiness and stability.
I want to say this in alluding to the fact that the handshake is now very shaky. I say so because Raila Odinga entered into the handshake with two reasons. One reason was to split Jubilee Party, which he has managed to achieve. Now Jubilee Party is dead. We have left Jubilee, most of us, now we are in UDA. So that one, he has achieved his first goal. His second goal...
It wasn't a written law that he wanted to divide the Jubilee Party.
Give me time, I explain, I'll come to that. So his first objective was to kill Jubilee, which he has managed. The second objective was to make Jubilee not to focus on development of the country. So that by the end of the day, towards the tail end of Uhuru Kenyatta's last term, now he can begin to fold the Jubilee government that it has failed the Kenyans, and he leaves the party. He leaves the handshake. So I will not be surprised if Raila Odinga tomorrow leaves the handshake, because he has achieved his purpose. Now, what the Kenyans were duped to believe as the reason why the handshake was brought forward is not true. This is what historians will say. History repeats itself. You will remember Raila Odinga used the same trick to kill Kanu party. He attempted to use the same tricks to defocus the government of Mwai Kibaki, but Mwai Kibaki learned much more faster and kicked him out. He used the same tricks to attempt to dismantle Fort Kenya that was being led by Kijana Wamalwa. So forget about what was on the paper.
Didmas, yes. Didmas, we know of what was on the paper, and what was on the paper is that this was to be a unity pact to unify the country. You are bringing forth the question of Raila's intentions of wanting to divide Jubilee. Those are your own views.
You have brought me here as a political analyst to be able to bisect whether the handshake is working or not. So if you brought me here as a political analyst, allow me to analyze this scenario in the best that I understand it.
Okay.
And I want to tell you for a fact that what I have said is very true, because now Raila Odinga's troops have beginning to attack the Uhuru Kenyatta's government, that it has failed Kenyans. Now, with what Honorable Tim Wanyonyi said, that they are still the opposition party, you don't have to go to sit for exams of class 8 to understand that for some of us who've been trying to criticize Uhuru Kenyatta, even though we are from Jubilee, ODM Brigade have been labeling us that we are fighting Uhuru Kenyatta, so they have become more government than us ourselves.
All right. Didmas, let me bring in Herman Manyora, who is our resident analyst. Herman, good evening. This is actually your first show of the year, nonetheless. We are talking of...
Happy New Year.
Quite late in the month, though. Now, Herman, we are talking of the handshake, whether it is stable or shaky. What we saw at the inception of the handshake was some sort of a political bromance of Big Brother embracing publicly, at least, the president alluding Raila and calling him as his big brother, Raila Odinga calling the president as his younger brother. That has moved to what now one would argue the foot soldiers are reading quite a different script from that unity pact.
I'm not quite sure. Ask the technician to fix there's echo stabbing. Anyway, I'm not quite sure there is a problem between the two brothers. What I do know, the BBI, the stage where it is now, and 2022 being this near, has generated obviously some heat. And that heat cannot spare Raila, neither is it sparing Uhuru. So all political players in the country are being attracted and attacked by this heat. And therefore you read situations like Baraza is reading in his own way. But I do not have anything tangible to go by to suggest, even in the slightest way, that Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga have some kind of problem. I haven't seen one. They are still on BBI. Uhuru Kenyatta is still focused on BBI. His last pronouncement, major pronouncement, was on BBI, asking people to support him. In the controversial radio talk, which he did in his vernacular language, he was strong on BBI. Raila is strong on BBI. As recently as this morning, I think, appearing on Kameme, I think, another vernacular radio TV station, speaking, I think, in Swahili. He doesn't understand Gikuyu. It was a Gikuyu TV station. Raila is still strong on BBI. So where people are getting this idea that there is a problem, I don't see.
All right.
But I've already said, because of BBI, as we head towards the referendum, and because of the few months remaining in 2022, there's certainly political heat. It's a political animal. Perhaps he wants to run for president. So some of the pronouncements he's making now must be read within that context, and to mean he's playing both the BBI and perhaps 2022. Yeah.
All right, Mheshimiwa Tim Wanyonyi, in your answer you talked about the party and party leader balancing between BBI and the 2022 prospective politics. That balancing, I suppose, will include that the two agendas of BBI and 2022 go in hand together?
No, as you have heard, even the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and the President have spoken very clearly and eloquently that BBI must be separated from 2022 politics. Because the moment you mix the two, then you bring in the likes of Ditmas Baraza coming to shout all manner of things and abusing and throwing, things that are not even there. We are not even alluding that Raila Odinga is going to run in 2022. We know he's our party leader, but he is focused on achieving what PBI objectives are. And that is one of the things that they brought them together with Uhuru Kenyatta. And as much as Jubilee tried to now demonize the BBI has given them stability to work. If the handshake was not there, Jubilee could have collapsed long time ago. And Ditmas is confirming to us here that Jubilee was just actually a lie, and it has just collapsed because they came just together to achieve the objective, which to wrestle power. And after that, Jubilee is no longer there, and they are just accepting that fact. How can Raila Odinga walk there and dismantle Jubilee if Jubilee was a solid political party? Their objective with the President Uhuru Kenyatta was noble, and their objective was to unify the country and give stability to the country and give hope to Kenyans.
All right.
That the government must be allowed to deliver on their mandate. So beyond that, it is the Jubilee affairs. It's not about ODM.
And team, quite a number of times you have talked about a Jubilee affair and affairs. You have talked about the party ODM in reference to this case being the opposition party, which begs the question, we have seen this in the last 1 or 2 weeks, a section of ODM leaders accusing the Jubilee government, faulting for its failures, but that faulting seems as though it is one-sided.
It is not one-sided. When you are in the opposition, you must put the government on its toes. You must make the government deliver. And what we have been witnessing now, their failures, they want to bring it on the ODM. They are saying ODM came to Jubilee and made Jubilee fail to deliver to the mandate, the mandates they had given to Kenyans. That is neither here nor there, because what I know is that Jubilee has been in power since 2013. So they must be charged for that period of time, from 2013 up to now, about 8 years. What is it there that they can tell Kenyans that we promised this and we have delivered, we promised this and we have done it? You remember when they were taking oath in the second term, the deputy president stood in Kasarani and told us about things which were just about 6 months to deliver. 6 months to deliver. This stadium is about 90% we are about to deliver. This road is about 80% and we are about to deliver. When we look back, we don't see any deliveries on that. We don't see anything. So this is their own baby, and they must carry that baby to the end. They should not wish that thing to someone else.
All right, Mheshimiwa team, you have made your point. I see Didmas rather has his hand literally up. Didmas, let me give you a right to respond to that.
Team is misleading the country. In terms of reading the minds of Raila Amolo Odinga, Raila does his own things. He doesn't leak to them on what his next point of action is. So Team Wanyonyi, in terms of Raila Odinga's administration, is just a flower girl. He's not aware of what Raila Odinga is planning to do. Now, Raila Odinga is to blame because what Raila Odinga did is that he has made the Jubilee government lose focus from implementing the Big Four agenda into implementing the BBI or the contents of the MOU within the handshake. So Raila Odinga has actually, with his handshake team, they have actually sabotaged the economic interests of the country for selfish political interests. And this is the fact. You will no longer hear Uhuru Kenyatta talk about the Big Four agenda, the housing, the agriculture, the universal health care. But every day you will see the head of state talks about the BBI and uniting the country. Now the country is more united than it was before.
Didmas, let me ask you this. You say that the ODM side and Raila are derailing the government, losing its focus from the Big Four agenda.
Absolutely.
That is what the deputy party leader of Jubilee, as of now, Deputy President William Ruto, has also said, which begs the question, more than just the semantics and saying that Raila is doing this, how has Raila and the handshake made Jubilee lose focus? The specifics.
You've seen Raila Odinga flying military choppers. Raila Odinga has taken over from William Ruto the role of advising His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta on matters economy of this country. Raila Odinga is now playing the role of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya insofar as that advisory is concerned. William Ruto is just DP on paper. Even a young child knows that role that he used to play in the Jubilee government of advising Uhuru Kenyatta on matters that affect the general population, on matters to do with the development. You've had even Dr. Fred Matiang'i, not once, not twice, saying that he only has one boss.
All right.
Even there is a day he said in Kirinyaga that there is no way a home can have two heads.
All right.
So that role has been taken over by Raila Odinga. We will explain what Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto did for this country from 2013 to 2017. And the Tim Wanyonyi and his Baba Raila Amolo Odinga should explain what they have done to this country from the time they entered government through handshake.
All right.
And the time that they will leave government.
Didmas, you will understand the government in power is a Jubilee government at the end of the day.
That is constitutionally on paper. But even Herman Manyora, he's smiling and he knows that Raila Odinga has replaced William Ruto as the chief government advisor on a number of things. This is a fact.
All right. Didmas, let me bring in Dr. Mohammed Mahmood, Wajir South lawmaker. We are talking of the opposition playing its part in as far as criticizing or otherwise the government is concerned. How much of a difficult or ease does Raila Odinga, in your view, find himself as on one hand having a handshake brother in the name of Uhuru Kenyatta, on another hand having a nemesis, if not a political rival as of now in the name of William Ruto, who are both the leaders of this Jubilee government?
You see, being in politics is like being in the middle of a rough ocean, and obviously the tide will be wobbling your boat. And that boat is the boat that you wanted to anchor at the harbor in time. And therefore, what really happens here is that the handshake was all about taking that course, taking that ship in that shaky waters, which is political storms. Remember, the two parties were not friends in the beginning. They were forced politically. Therefore, the relationship that was established and built in 2019 really was aimed at cooling down the temperatures. Has that happened? Along the course, yes, it did happen in terms of the national affairs is concerned. The political temperatures cooled down. But it eventually picked up again when there has been a tear or a rift within the parties. And that is, even look, in the beginning, NASA coalition was one, and they were together. And once the handshake began, there has been a challenge. And that challenge that really happened was that every party within the coalition decided to take their part, their directions. But eventually, what brought them back together was all about the BBI changing of the, reviewing the constitution, is what eventually brought around, because there was an interest within that. That is the constitutional changes and amendments, for that matter. Therefore, once they have found that there is an interest, and I'm starting with the coalition, NASA coalition, simply because that was the larger coalition that we had in the beginning as big parties. Of course, Jubilee had 13 parties collapsed together. But what I am coming to here is that the relationship between the parties, and that is the coalition parties, was based on winning a presidential election, which did not happen simply because Jubilee was too better, too strong, and obviously more smarter in terms of gaining the seat. But that was history now. But that history is now defining the handshake again. And that handshake is all about Jubilee that was one and together has had a rocky moment. And that rocky moment simply happened because within the handshake or the handshake period, radicalized circumstances did occur. And I really don't want to define further what that means. But what that means is that the political speakers became a bit more noisy. And that is where it all began. However, coming back to whether the handshake is shaky or not, it takes me to define and say that the political relationship between the two principles remains, so as far as we are concerned, on course. But has that really affected the actual agenda of Jubilee? I would say to some extent it did, but that is recoverable, I would guess.
And is it an excusable excuse to point and cite saying that we were derailed because of this handshake?
I mean, I'm not sure whether I will say we were derailed because of this handshake. In every government that is in its second term, there is always a wobble within the development track record of that particular government that was there twice in government.
Fair enough. Let me get to Herman Manyora. Herman, Raila, while speaking to a section of women, said, and I quote, that they say Raila is analog. They said children will have laptops. He has forgotten that, and now he's giving out handcarts and wheelbarrows. Where are the jobs? State-of-the-art stadia. This, as per the reading of the literal text, handcarts and wheelbarrows points out to the DP, but it points out to more than just the DP. He's faulting the Jubilee government led by President Uhuru Kenyatta.
You see, I want to address that, but allow me some latitude. Because if I'm sharing a platform with my colleagues, I must respond some of the things they say.
Go ahead, Herman.
My friend and younger brother Didmas Baraza says Raila came to destroy Jubilee, which he has done. He came to make sure that the big four are shelved. He says they have done that. And now he finally says Raila has taken over the role of DP. We must point out to Didmas Baraza. One, if indeed it is true that Raila has taken over from Ruto, and Ruto's role is what is he doing in that office, earning taxpayers' money, consuming millions of shillings to run that office? Two, if indeed it is true that Raila has killed Jubilee, it made Uhuru forget what is up. To this fellow, they are saying actually he doesn't know what's doing. He's like, I will walk a pass to think. He see if Raila wants to destroy Jubilee, that Uhuru has to see that, so going on in that direction. There's so much that's going on in terms of agriculture, in terms of food security. There's so much that's going on. I am looking at it and saying it's not good enough. But as to the agenda, Didmas Baraza and his colleagues are telling us the president doesn't have a brain and a mind of his own. I think that is dangerous. But very finally, Abu Bakr, before I answer your question, it's normal and the human being to forget. But when you suffer from forgetfulness, morning today, especially if it affects you, you need to seek medical help. Baraza and his friends will need to seek medical help, because if they can forget where this country was after the elections of 2017 and the early 2018, if they can forget, the things they are talking about, Abu Bakr, would not have happened if Raila and Uhuru Kenyatta did not put country first. It would not have happened. And now in terms of what Raila is saying, you saw, like I've told you before, 2022 is so near. Raila is a politician. He may be interested in the seat. So he will come out from the shadows. There are some of the things he has been saying maybe quietly and silently to Uhuru Kenyatta. And now, maybe with the advice of his people, Wapambe wake, he must be coming out strongly. He could also be realizing, and I think that will be all right, that if he pushes the BBI agenda alone, it may be too late when he wakes up to push his 2022 agenda. So some of the things he's saying, like I've said before, must be understood within that context of the mix between 2022 and the BBI, and that there is no time left. It wouldn't mean that he's actually going against the handshake. He's just working with the realities of the day.
All right, Mheshimiwa Tim Wanyonyi, you talk of the opposition and ODM playing its role. Does that include playing its role even when the handshake partner, President Uhuru Kenyatta, is on the wrong?
We are still alive to that as far as we are concerned, the government is Jubilee. They are the ones who have given mandate by Kenyans to run the government. And when my dear brother, Ditmas, talks about ODM and Raila Odinga taking over the role of government, who sits in the cabinet? Raila doesn't sit in the cabinet. William Ruto does. The government and the executive consists of the president, the deputy president, and the cabinet secretaries. Raila Odinga, by any definition, does not fall there. He never took up any role. He did not even bargain for a role in government. And they was very clear about that. They were only about unifying the country and giving the country back the stability to allow the government to deliver to Kenyans what they had promised them, and also for the government to be governable. At that time, as my brother, Honorable Manyora has said, the country was going to the dogs. But these two gentlemen, I can call them statesmen, they shelved their interests and put the country first. And that is what brought about the handshake. It's not about these selfish interests that the Tanga team are trying to propagate. And one thing I also want to remind my brother Litmas, please listen to yourself when you pronounce some things. It's not just about Raila this, Raila that. It is something that is bigger than Raila himself. It's bigger than Uhuru. It is Kenya. What we are talking about is the country first. And as we are concerned, we are in the opposition and we are still official opposition. And our bad leader must lead his troops. He cannot play the Jubilee politics.
All right.
Let Jubilee play their own politics.
All right. Didmas, you say, I'll give you a right to respond to that, but Didmas, earlier on you said that let's look at what the president and his deputy did while they were literally political brothers, hence being in the same camp. But the DP is equally on record saying that if anything wrong goes in this government, he will be held accountable for.
Yes, but let me first educate my friend Tim Wanyonyi on some facts which he has deliberately decided to ignore. Parliament works together with the executive to design policies that are discussed at cabinet. We have got very important committees. Let me tell you, for example, the Committee for Education, whose chair is the Honorable Florence Mutua, who is an ODM member of Parliament. We have the Committee of Finance and Economic Planning, which is in the hands of Gladys Wanga, who is an ODM member of Parliament. These are people who are chairing very critical committees that they are supposed to sit down with the Treasury and the government to be able to come up with the policies that will either take this country forward or take this country backward. We have got two committees that are equally also very important: Public Investment Committee and the Public Account Committee that are, as we speak now, they are in the hands of ODM.
And these committees were in the hands of Jubilee members.
Let me say this.
Not long ago, these committees were in the hands of Jubilee members of Parliament.
Yes, when they were in the hands of Jubilee members, we can account for what they did to this country. And I want the Honorable Tim Wanyonyi to tell this country that from the time that these committees came into the hands of ODM, I want him to tell this country what steps have they taken to take this country forward, especially in liberating this country from the economic turmoil that was plunged in from the time of the handshake. We must be very honest with this side of things. This is what I'm saying, that we cannot spare the blame of the failure of the Jubilee government from the time of the handshake to date from ODM. The ODM, led by Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, they are like twins when it comes to analyzing what the Jubilee government has done from the time of handshake to date. Because the roads you see being tarmac on the road, or when you go out, all the good things that we see around, they were implemented by the Jubilee government from 2013 to 2017. But after 2017 elections, the song has been from BBI, referendum, handshake, peace, going forward.
All right. You say from 2017, it is the handshake team and a section of Jubilee.
Correct.
But Kenyans went to the ballot to elect a president and a deputy president who were on a ticket of Jubilee.
Yes.
A coalition that brought together other small political parties,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yes.
Kenyans should be holding the two whom they elected to power.
I want to agree. That's why I'm saying we are worried as members of Jubilee Party, because when we went around this country, we were giving promises to Kenyans, and Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto were elected on the basis of what they were telling Kenyans that they will do. And whatever that they were telling Kenyans, handshake, BBI, referendum, was none of what we told Kenyans. So we have introduced in a new deliverable that were not part of our package that we sold to Kenyans for them to be able to put us in government today. So I am worried that today, if we go before Kenyans, asking them to vote for us, again, they will say, we are not going to give Uhuru Kenyatta another chance to lead the country, because what we made us vote for him, he has derailed, he has been off balance, he has adrifted. Now he's focusing on something which Kenyans never thought is a problem, is an issue that need to be fixed.
All right, and you talk of the president, and if he was to seek an election now, if you were to seek one in Kimilili now on a Jubilee ticket, will you win that?
Yes, because my promise to the people of Kimilili, I have delivered.
All right, all right.
You know, I had a different agenda from the agenda of Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta.
All right, Dr. Mohammed, I want us to move from the handshake to the rotation of the presidency, which was proposed as an idea, even though it has its if and buts. But as we finish on this, observably, if the handshake was to unite the country, is it playing its part, Dr. Mohammed?
Look, when it comes into rotational aspects of presidency, obviously I want to be a president as well, and that goes to Wajir South, which is, if Adam and Eve came today, we'll see that there is zero development in that part of the country. And obviously, the obvious reason is that the neglect that has been, the subsequent governments that were there have given a considerable amount of neglect in that northern part. And obviously, that becomes quite clear if anyone goes and visits there. And therefore, my presidency and my aim to be a president will obviously be to put all the parts of Kenya at par. And therefore see that development has reached everywhere. And that aspect that the president has said that kila Mkenya anaweza kuwa rais, I think that is a very good step forward and hope for us and for many of our generations that may never have had a hope of becoming a president. And that is the reason as to why. Currently the debate is surrounding of who becomes the president today and who will become the president tomorrow, and that is an obvious play. But coming back to the actual point that I want to raise is that looking for the position of presidency is one thing. Running a government of national unity, a government that focuses on development and delivering for the people of Kenya is the thing that we always peg in the place of our national anthem and sharing the resources within our borders, and that is where it comes into the relationship between the two parties is concerned. But whether that is being delivered or whether that is not being delivered, the debate remains critical here. And I want to say it remains critical because accountability is the key thing. And the three arms of government must be accountable for all failures that did happen. And the three arm of government now rests within the government of the day. Whether an opposition came in and decided to shake the bedroom or not is something else altogether. So Parliament has failed. Let me put it this way clearly, and I will beat about no bush simply because Parliament is irrelevant and has become quite irrelevant at this particular stage. However, I am quite new in politics, but I see that simply because our voice seems not to be heard louder and clearer, and that is where I want to start off from. For future governments, we want to see that parliaments are strong enough. And I leave the rest of the three arms of the rest of the two arms of government what they should be doing.
Fair enough. Herman Manyora, the president, while speaking to a section of vernacular radio station, said, and I quote, "My comments during the funeral in Vihiga that perhaps it's time for other communities to lead seem to have touched a raw nerve." Did you see the reaction it elicited? Definitely, it elicited quite a reaction both online and in the corridors of politics, but it has opened up a question of inclusion and excluding some, has it not, Herman?
Of course, when you have a country with a kind of multiplicity of ethnicities or tribes, as we call them, in the configuration such as ours, with the kind of history we have from colonialism to early independence, you will have this kind of frictions. And this question will always come. In some countries, it has been solved with disastrous consequences. So raising that issue is not an empty thing. That look here, to what extent are we a nation? Mm-hmm. How much inclusivity do we have? And the kind of exclusivity we seem to be having with the two tribes or two ethnicities, running government from 1963 up to date, all the years of independence, that how sustainable is that? These are questions serious people who love their country will definitely ask. But sometimes they are very uncomfortable questions. Mm-hmm. So I don't say I support it or it is right or it is wrong, but it's an issue Kenyans must put on the table. Just like Americans are being forced over the years to put the race question on the table. They should not try to brush it aside because they have put it in the statutes and the Constitution. No, because it's always rearing its ugly head in America, you see. So even for us, that question must be put on the table at all times, uncomfortable as it is. But give me a minute, because like I said, when we are talking here, we must debate really. When Baraza says that the first term of Uhuru was good, he achieved a lot, this one hasn't, maybe he's right, but what measure is he using? Where are the engineers to tell us how many kilometers of road were done then and how many have been done now? But what we can see, and I must say two things quickly. One, my friend Didmas and your friend, what we can see and state quickly without needing a ruler to measure is that there was much more corruption in the first term than there is in this second term. Mm-hmm. That is obvious. Secondly, as you are so concerned and lost on trying to prove that Uhuru has done nothing in this second term, you are conveniently, and I don't even know to use that word, you actually doing the service to your own people from Western Kenya and the Luhya nation. Because in your attempt to see that Uhuru is not doing anything, you are not seeing the kilometers of roads that are being done in Mount Kenya region. You are not seeing the dual carriageway, two of them that are being done there. You are so blind you can't see that.
in your attempt to show that Uhuru is not working, you are not telling your people from Western Kenya, there is so much money Uhuru has put out there for young people in the Ministry of Industrialization and others covered by the Ministry of Finance under the microfinance and small enterprises. The huge money, billions of shillings. People from Nairobi and Central Kenya and other parts of the country are accessing that money that Uhuru is availing to young people. But you are intent on showing that Uhuru is doing nothing. Instead of saying, yes, here he has done well, here he has failed. Now here he has done well, there's so much money, let me rush to Bungoma and activate a system through the county government and other fora to make young men and women in Bungoma access the funds which Uhuru has put on the table for young people. Don't be blinded by your hatred for Uhuru Kenyatta. Don't be blinded by politics, not to see that which is positive, especially that which can benefit your own people. Didmas Baraza.
I think you know, Herman Manyora, you are a political analyst. You analyze politics on the basis of how many papers you are reading, research you are reading. And me, I talk from a practical point of view. I am a practicing politician. So when I speak, you should listen, because I will give you a real snapshot of what is happening. So I'm a member of parliament. When I speak from a point of authority. I am also not saying that having a rotational president is a bad thing, but I don't think if that statement was made from the honesty that the Kenyans would expect. Now I say so because if President Uhuru Kenyatta is honest and is serious about this country having a rotational president, so that every tribe produces at least a president. Today in this country we have about 110 critical positions. We have 22 positions of CS, we have about 42 positions of CAS, about 64 positions of about 44 positions of principal secretaries, and of course one for deputy president and his deputy, bring it to a total of about 110. Now, if the president is serious about inclusivity, that all tribes must participate in leadership of this country, let him dissolve his cabinet so that these 110 positions are shared equally among the 45 tribes of Kenya. Today we have a tribe that has produced more than 2 principal secretaries, more than 2 cabinet secretaries, even in some state departments. Actually, the board members can transact the business of that board, even in vernacular, because they come from one tribe. So I challenge His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta that if he loves the 45 tribes of Kenya, let him dissolve his government, let him sack all the CAS, let him sack all the principal secretaries, so that we will have 110 positions to be shared among the 45 tribes of this country. Then Kenyans will begin to take him very, 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 very serious. And lastly, the head of state, who is a symbol of national unity, there is what we call a yellow paper. A yellow paper is a government document that is available for debate and officially to be adopted. So instead of him issuing those statements in funerals, let him issue those statements on a yellow paper so that the technocrats can take it, do proper research, put it in policy into an implementable document.
All right. Didmas, you talk of the subdivision of numbers so that there is a sense of fairness, isn't it?
Absolutely.
On positions that are to be shared.
Absolutely.
So that no one is left out.
Yes.
But it is you, Didmas, alongside many other lawmakers who are dividing Kenyans based on class, terming some as dynasties, as others as hustlers. That is an oxymoron to what you're saying, if not a contradiction.
No. I mean, when you ask a question, you should ask a question on the basis of what I've just said.
No, I will ask questions based on the questionnaire.
We are just saying, when we talk about the hustler nation, we are simply saying that the economic system of government of the country called Kenya going forward must be from bottom up, not up to bottom. We are simply saying that the hustlers, who are majorly the low-earning Kenyan people, the lower class, the people who sell groceries, the people who sell sugar canes, the people who push mkokoteni. We are simply saying that there must be at the center of discussion by government in terms of coming up with the policies that will also try to improve their lives, because very many times we've been discussing about how to accommodate the big economic players.
Right.
And we forget the low income earners. That's why we are saying that we must change the narrative and begin to talk about implementing of very good economic policies that will spur the growth of the economy from bottom to the top, not from the top to the bottom. It is ODM that bringing propaganda to mean that the hustlers dynasties to derail us, but we will continue to push this narrative.
Let's have a discussion, Didmas. I've given you more than enough minutes to respond to that. You have told us where the hustlers should be, that they should be on the table. Where should those whom you classify as dynasties be? Because we are talking of fairness, aren't we?
By the way, for your information, people have a misunderstanding that dynasties means rich people. Let me explain to Kenyans the meaning of a dynasty. Today, if you agree with me that all is not good in this country in terms of the economy, in terms of development, then you will blame three families. You will blame the Odinga family, you will blame the Moi family, and the Kenyatta family. These are people who have occupied the executive from independence.
It's
so if we are saying
it's individuals from those families, it's not the families who are in power entirely.
That's why I'm saying, so when we talk about dynasties, basically it means those three families that I've talked about. It's not about the rich people. You know, so when we talk about dynasties versus hustlers, you know, we've been told by the likes of Herman Manyora through his analysis and Tim Wanyonyi through his friends in ODM that, you know, they seem to be, you know, want to make Kenya look like it's a monarch state where you pass the leadership baton from the Kenyatta family to Odinga family to Moi family. No, Kenya has got very many families.
Didmas, I want us to move from that, but one final question on that. You talk of the Odingas. Just for purposes of record, the elder Odinga was the Vice President Jaramogi for 2 years. The Deputy President is a Vice President Deputy President as of now for 8 years and counting. And at the end of his term, he will be a Deputy President for 10 years. He's not a dynasty himself?
You know, when you talk about, when I talk about families that have dominated the politics of this country, I don't mean that a member of this family occupied a position in government for 2 years. I mean, the Odinga family, the Odinga name has been in government for all these very many years, including today, whether if they were in government or not. But the actions of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, the gesture of Raila Amolo Odinga, is what defines the trajectory of government in terms of development going forward. Look at, for example, Raila Odinga. He loses an election. He stages economic sabotage. He travels to the US, he comes back, a few people are killed. He sits down, he makes a U-turn. He engages in a handshake. All of a sudden, he begins to fly military choppers.
So
that's why we are saying that
let's get back to there. Of course,
has been very instrumental insofar as deciding how government is structured and how it's run. So we can't run away from this fact.
On a lighter note, Didmas, you seem to be having a problem with Raila flying choppers. You have made, I think, thrice that point. On a lighter note, Mheshimiwa Tim Wanyonyi, because of the interest of time, we are talking of rotating the presidency. Is it a debate worth having now?
I think what is there is that what the president said is that any Kenyan can rise to become the president of this country. And that is something that should be taken as Honorable Manyora has said, should be put on the table. We should not bury our heads in the sand. We should be live to these things that actually there are communities in this country that have resigned to fate. They say that whatever it is, they know who will become the president will come from this community, or the ruling class will come from this community or that community. That should not be the thing. It should be even an El Molo can rise and be a president, a Kriama, a Turkana, or any other community in this country. That should be something that should be there so that we give hope to even young people who are coming up that through the normal structures of government, he can rise and become the president of this country. And number two, I would like to say that this narrative of dynasties and hustlers, I think, as my friend takes it very lightly, the people down there, people they are addressing, are understanding it contrary to what he's saying. He may understand it differently, but we can see people actioning whatever they are saying. And this is a dangerous trend. We must halt it. You must realize that you have made a mistake and change your narrative and explain to Kenyans what is this that you are trying to drive. Number two, Honorable Ditmas Baraza, I think he likes throwing names here and there and everywhere. He's a junior member of parliament, and he alludes that he can educate me on parliamentary affairs. Let him know that two committees, the PIC and PAC, these are oversight committees, and traditionally they must be held by opposition. It cannot be held by the ruling party. So him saying that ODM were holding this, ODM was doing this, that's neither here or there. Maybe he doesn't understand that. And lastly, I would like to say that Kenya is bigger than any one of us. And if one person, for example, Raila Odinga, he loses election, he goes to court, which is right. The court nullifies the election. But after pushing so hard, trying to make to drive his point, he realizes that if he goes along this path, the country is going to suffer and it may be difficult to recover. So he shelves his interest and says, "I'll step back and allow them to continue with the management of the government." And that's what he said, because at that time we had refused even to recognize the Jubilee government. We said that it's not legitimate. And after the handshake, that happened, and now Kenya is stable, and the Ditmas are enjoying those fruits.
All right.
They must never step back and just throw punches because he hates somebody. Let us not have that kind of passion in politics.
All right, Mheshimiwa Tim Wanyonyi, thank you for your thoughts. Dr. Mohammed, your final remarks?
I mean, my final remarks is that we want to see stable and prosperous Kenya, and the only way we can see that is that we have to give and take much of the jobs. I mean, what that means is for the politicians, that is. And we want to see that a political temperature that has come down and brought Kenyans together. We want to see fruitful, progress in terms of the final term of the president, and make sure that we have delivered the Jubilee's 4 agenda that needed to be done. How that should be done is not necessarily through, political noise everywhere, but through a calm political situation. And that is one of the ways that the handshake is considered for in the beginning and primarily. But whether that is going to be delivered or not is a question that I really want to look at. I'm more optimistic than really pessimistic at this particular stage, in the sense that I want to see that my optimism comes and is pegged on the process of justice and freedom in this country, freedom of speech, freedom of political position. But what has happened in the past a couple of years, I would say, that there has been radicalized political rhetorics. And those political rhetorics are not good for this country.
All right.
And that rhetorics must be reduced so that the temperature of a political, push and pull that eventually would throw us into war path is stopped. That is where my position is.
Thank you. Before I get to Herman, Didmas, less than a minute.
I think I want to say this, that going by what Honorable Tim Wanyonyi has said, that I am a very junior member of parliament and he is a second-term MP. I cannot advise him or educate him. That is where we go wrong as a country. I say so because the fact that you are a second or third-time member of parliament, it doesn't give you a monopoly of intelligence. And I can dare even say that even if we are members of parliament, even a Mama Mboga can have a better idea than what we have. And this calls for us leaders putting aside the positions we hold, and listen even to the common Mwananchi who may have a better idea on how we can govern him. And
But
this is
must-
what
you
we
must
are
also
talking
mind your
about,
language, please.
the
You
Hustler
must also
Nation,
mind your language.
where you listen to,
You
but
cannot
you
say
listen
you
to the
educate me,
person
and then you turn around and
whom
say,
you
Mama
think
Mboga.
doesn't
must
hold
also
a
mind
position
your
that you
Mheshimiwa
hold.
team, team, let Didmas make his point kindly.
What I'm simply saying, that the fact that you are second-term member of parliament doesn't give you a monopoly
All
of
right,
intelligence.
all right. If Didmas
Even
then,
Mama Mboga can have a better idea than what we have as
Noted,
members of
noted,
parliament.
Didmas.
So we
Finally-
have to listen to every person.
all right, Herman, your final remarks.
What I say is this, that this is our country. We must love it in deed and in word. This is the season of politics. Let's not lose our heads because of politics. You can see people are coming up with very laughable ideas. Do not promise Kenyans that which you will not give them. Do not incite Kenyans because you want to be in power. When you come up with ridiculous things like, you want to empower the people, bottom up, or poverty in this country, which is true, there's poverty. But the question one must always ask people like Didmas Barasa, what are you putting on the table to show that when we take power, this is how we shall end poverty. When we take power, this is how we're going to create jobs. This is how we are going to stop cheap imports. This is how we are going to deal with Uncle Sam, the Americans, in terms of second-hand cloth. This is going to be my policy. It's going to be hurting a few people. Americans will not like it. Chinese will not like it. But I'll be creating jobs in this country. My policy on this is this and this to ensure that young men and women in this country can move forward. But now when you get yourself to very foolish levels, for example, forgive the word, where you have a person with a Prado, most likely a V8, with a wheelbarrow on top. Do you think Kenyans are that foolish? Are dancing on a wheelbarrow on top of a V8? Honestly. You see, this is the season of madness. The season of politics is a season of madness. I'm asking Baraza and hustlers, reduce your madness. Because Kenyans are going to laugh at you. You know you have a good following. It may not give you power. It may not give you the presidency. But it's a reasonable following which you are losing through your madness and acts of foolishness. So because this is our country, let's reduce that. Let's just love each other, do good politics. Ukora kidogo lakini sio sana. Wheelbarrow unaweza kuongeza kidogo lakini si kusukuma wheelbarrow mpaka katika inchi ya ushenzi. Unaelewa bana? Kama your wheelbarrow on top of a big vehicle. You know, people are looking at you and they begin to laugh at you. At the end of the day, Didmas Barasa, you are going to lose so badly. you laugh. You are going to lose so badly. Because like I said earlier, don't hate somebody like Uhuru Kenyatta to the point of forgetting what he's doing. Especially if he's revolutionizing, agriculture in the mount. You see, in the mountain region, Uhuru Kenyatta has revolutionized agriculture
I
and
don't
farming.
represent the mountain, I
Coffee,
represent Kimilili constituency.
Miraa,
Okay, let him make
tea,
his point kindly.
milk. He has pumped there billions of money, as I call them. Baraza, your people are languishing in poverty because the sugar sector is collapsed. Maize farmers can't even sell their maize. Please, put Uhuru to task. Tell him why are you pumping so much money on the other side and our people are dying. Don't follow somebody blindly with a wheelbarrow pushing. You are an educated person.
All right, Herman, because of the interest of time, Didmas.
You know, Herman has talked about, has mentioned my name more than 10 times. I want to tell Herman Manyora that I represent Kimilili constituency and largely Bungoma, where I come from. I don't represent the mountain. So when I talk about from 2017 to date, Jubilee government has done nothing in Kimilili and in Bungoma. I know what I'm talking about.
All right.
And I don't know where he's getting
Didmas.
these figures about much money being pumped into the economy. I don't see it.
All right, Didmas Barasa is Kimilili lawmaker. Tim Wanyonyi is Westlands MP. Dr. Mohammed Mahmoud Sheikh is Wajir South lawmaker. Herman Manyora is our resident analyst. Thank you, gentlemen, once again for making time for us on Pundits Night on TV 47. Well, that brings us to the end of tonight's edition of Pundits Night. On behalf of the entire team,